Come on, get your stuff. Let's go.
You serious?
Sony's Spider-Verse is a wonderful thing. Unlike the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where a misstep entails trampling on the grave of something that used to be really quite good, Sonyverse bombs detonate in a comparatively controlled environment. Twice in the case of Morbius. It's the difference really between watching someone burn a good book and watching a funny death compilation from Grand Theft Auto. It's so much easier to laugh when you already assume that the thing's a total joke. In that spirit, Madam Web is going to go down as one of my favourite movies of the last few years. It sits in the same camp as Willow, peace be upon him, or Velma, in proving that nothing is so funny as pure, sublime, unadulterated incompetence. From beginning to end, you sit there wondering just how the hell this thing got made. I mean, yeah, sure, its official budget is just $80 million, but given the result is genuinely worse than your average high school Christmas play, that's at least 6 zeros more than it's worth. The great thing is, though, it never gets old. From the opening scene, which plays out like someone's deliberately parodying clunky exposition in superhero films, it just kind of escalates. You begin by asking tamely, how the hell did this get made? But every time you ask that question, your voice gets louder and higher pitched. How did this get made? How did this get made? How the fuck did this get made? This obviously is just the précis review. My full breakdown will follow on my main channel, The Little Platoon, sometime next week. Yes, Madam Web is so good that I'm reviewing it twice, and there you tossers just thought I hated everything. At this point, though, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to approach it, because so much of this film really just has to be seen, and then laughed at. It's actually to the film's credit, you'll have a really good time with it, it is just that bad. Madam Web boasts some of the worst dialogue ever committed to film, a lot of which seems to have been dubbed in by a drunk puffin. The vast majority of the effort committed to the film by its actors consists of them trying not to cringe through the lines they have to speak and only rarely succeeding. At times, Madam Web has you wondering whether they're even reading from a script at all, or whether the director sucked all the inspiration out of them and then told them to ad-lib. Its least funny moments are its genuine attempts at humor, but given it's really quite hard to tell what's meant to be a joke and what isn't, there are very few scenes that won't make you at least snicker, and there are quite a lot that'll have you laughing out loud in your empty theatre. I am not one prone to exaggeration. Madam Web is one of the funniest films you will see all year, especially when it's trying to be serious. I suppose then it's worth going over the plot in brief. Again, this is not the full breakdown, and anyway, calling this thing a plot is itself kind of funny. Pared back to its essentials, it goes as follows. Back in the 1970s, a heavily pregnant mother Web is hacking her way through the Peruvian Amazon in search of a magic spider. Few people have seen and nobody has ever caught the magic spider before, but they need to find the magic spider because even though few people have seen and nobody has ever caught the magic spider before, they know its venom has the power to cure pretty much all diseases. Mother Web is accompanied by an actual clown person, the villain of the piece, who we'll just call evil because that is the extent of his character. When she finds the spider, he betrays her, he shoots her, and he takes the spider for himself. His justification, I shit you not, is that his family starved to death years ago, so he wants to be, like, powerful. That's kind of it for him. That's just, yeah, that really is it. I mean, the guy could have worked with Mother Web and outbigged Big Pharma with the miracle venom, but no, because, yeah, shut up. A dying Mother Web is rescued by some Peruvian spider people, yes, and she gives birth in a pool in a cave. Peruvian spider Jesus, also, yes, promises he'll be waiting for her when her daughter returns, because that's obviously what the plot demands, and so Mother Web dies. We jump then forward to the year 2003. They picked 2003 for pretty much no apparent reason. Maybe they're hoping in the far future people will assume that this film was released in 2003, because then it won't look quite so bad by comparison. And it's in 2003 that we pick up with Madam Web herself, played by Dakota Johnson. Johnson has given the impression in her media rounds that she really rather hates this film and the industry as a whole.
It's called Madam Web. In the Marvel Universe, and it also stars Sydney Sweeney. So it's kind of like if AI generated your boyfriend's perfect movie.
and if she conveys anything in her performance in this film, it is exactly that. She is, for her day job, a paramedic. She's friends with Ben Wyatt from Parks and Recreation, who is also a paramedic. She is what we might politely term a social spastic, and she hates her mother because her mother was selfish and died during childbirth. No, I'm not making this up. It's a vital part of her character arc. The line, "I hope the spiders were worth it, Mum," is genuinely spoken in this film. During the course of her normal paramedic life, she bumps into 3 teenaged girls: diverse female character 1, diverse female character 2, and Sydney Sweeney, whose stepmother she saves from some generic accident, I guess. That, of course, means that these characters are now bound together with a bond stronger than family. They are a family. And yes, that's pretty much all set up in one scene for each of them. One of them flips her off when she walks in front of an ambulance. I don't even remember what the other one does. And Sydney Sweeney's in hospital with her step-parents. Oh, and because you're wondering, no, Sydney Sweeney's, natural assets, they are not utilized by this film at all. Now, you know it's a work of absurdist fiction because they've taken someone with Sydney Sweeney's natural assets and turned her into a socially dysfunctional nerd with low self-esteem. As befits a modern superhero film, each of these girls has precisely one component that makes up their personality. Sydney Sweeney lacks confidence, which is, yeah, fine, whatever. Diverse female character 2 loves maths, and diverse female character 1 likes food. That's kind of it. That's just who they are. That's the extent of who they are. Called to a car crash, not the film, Madam Web somehow manages to get herself trapped in the wrecked car, which for plot convenient reasons falls off a bridge and into a river. This is how she gets the power to see the future. You see, you think I'm joking, but no, I'm not. That's just how the film rolls. It really is. Madam Web starts slipping forward in time in the days that follow and seeing things before they happen. And the first couple of times this occurs represent the film at its technical best. If you park the fact that she never really interrogates the weird underwater spiderweb vision that conferred foresight upon her to begin with, then watching her try to understand just what the fuck is happening to her, and the awkward interactions it leads to with those around her, is genuinely not terrible. The first couple of times, at least. Though she's so slow in understanding it that it stops being clever on the 4th or 5th occasion, and she ends up looking fairly Via an interaction with a pigeon, no, I'm still not fucking joking, she realizes that the future isn't set and she can actually change it, which will be important later when she seems to kind of forget that. Evil, meanwhile, hooks up with a MILF who works for the NSA. Then he poisons her with some spider venom that he's now infused with, which power is absolutely more useful to him than, I don't know, creating the biggest pharmaceutical company in the history of the world. He says, "Believe me, it's a good thing you had no idea today was the day you were going to die." And, oh god, if anything, this comically bad line is one of his better lines in the entire film, but you'll have to watch the full breakdown to get the rest of them. From her, he gains access to a top-secret NSA program that allows him to hunt people down. Why does he want to hunt people down, you might be wondering? Why? Because he has a recurring nightmare in which 3 spider women, the 3 girls Madam Web bumped into earlier, kill him. And so, he has to kill them, as he says repeatedly, over and over again, in pretty much every scene he's in. He really is the most hilarious clown character. I can't do justice to him in a video of this short length. I will be quoting extensively from him in my main video, but if you're sitting there thinking, well, hey, there's probably a ton of other ways of taking care of your problem that don't involve dressing in a spider suit and chasing teenagers across the city in broad daylight, then you are not a stupid clown person. Well done. But he is a stupid clown person, so that's exactly what he does, even though he has access to top-secret NSA programs that allow him to do pretty much anything the plot requires. Then, for reasons having to do with fate or convenience, take your pick, all 3 of the girls, plus Madam Web, end up at the same train station on the same day boarding the same train, so he sets off to murder them all, wearing a spider suit, in broad daylight. But because Madam Web has foresight now, she sees him coming before he actually comes, and gets the girls to safety. Unfortunately, the police get the impression that she kidnapped the 3 girls, because nobody else saw Evil crawling around in a spider suit in broad daylight and murdering several cops during a high-speed pursuit. But that doesn't matter, because it only comes up once again across the entirety of the rest of the film. Madam Web reasons that the three girls are the only ones who can prove her innocence, and she doesn't particularly want to have to take care of them after all, so naturally, she takes them straight to the police station to get herself exonerated, right? Wrong. No, she doesn't. Instead, she takes them into the woods somewhere and then leaves them there while she goes home to do some spider research in her mother's journals that she keeps and reads but also doesn't ever read ever because she doesn't know what's in them. For their part, the generic girls are not actually characters, so they just argue inanely with each other and then decide they'll fuck off to the local diner to find some food. Though they know they're being hunted by a spider demon, they think, fuck, I don't care, sod precautions. So when they spot some dweeby-looking teenage males, they do the natural thing and hop up on a table and start dancing to Britney Spears and Beyonce. Oh god, do I need to reiterate that I'm really still not joking, this all actually happens? Some fat bozo in the diner happens to be reading a newspaper that just happens to have a front page story on the abducted girls, and since the only reason you would ever see girls dancing on a table in a diner is that they've been abducted, he phones the police. And so of course his call is intercepted by Evil and his NSA program, so Evil sets off to murder them all again. But once again, Madam Web sees it all before it happens, so she hits him with her car and they leave. Madam Web returns to the diner later that night and gets into a psycho fight with Evil, who accuses her of trying to beat him with her mind, which is very funny since nobody in this film has one of those. He reiterates that he has to kill the girls because he's a villain, and then they both just kind of leave. It's not really resolved in that moment. Back at the motel, Madam Web teaches the girls that you can beat the super bad spider venom that Evil has if you perform CPR. Yeah, okay, fine. Which is like, yeah, oh god, yeah. I mean, it's so random and out of place, you immediately know a vast dumb contrivance is afoot that'll absolutely be relevant later. Having read in her mother's notebooks that her mother had once bumped into a bunch of Peruvian spider people with superpowers who can see the future, Madam Web dumps the three girls with Ben Wyatt and buggers off to the Amazon rainforest. How she gets there unmolested, given Evil's super secret NSA program has control of every camera in the country, and this is post 9/11 America, where you can't so much as walk through an airport without getting anally probed by security, I do not know. Lucky for her, she's white, I guess. In Peru, she bumps into Peruvian spider Jesus. Oh god. She bumps into Peruvian spider Jesus, who takes her to the pool she was born in so she can have a flashback. In the flashback, she learns that Mother Web only went to the Amazon hunting spiders while heavily pregnant because she knew that her daughter, Madam Web, had a rare and fatal genetic condition that only the spider venom could cure, even though nobody's ever caught one of the spiders before, so they have no idea what its venom could do. This means that she forgives her mother, and because she forgives her mother, she can now unlock the next tier of foresight. It's basically a tech tree. Peruvian Spider Jesus tells her that though the spider venom gave Evil super strength and money and the ability to poison people at will, it gave her the ability to see and therefore change the future. And for some reason, she has to be convinced by Peruvian Spider Jesus that this is actually better. And it doesn't end there. Oh no, because moreover, once she unlocks the next tier in the skill tree, her ability to see the future will also allow her to be in several places at once. Because, and here I quote the film directly, when you accept responsibility, great power will come. No, I'm not fucking joking, it's actually in the film. Unfortunately, while all this is going on, Ben Wyatt's sister's waters break, so he, she, and the three generic girls have to rush off to the local hospital so she can give birth there. Because if they just left the generic girls at home and safe, they would have been safe, and yeah, the movie wouldn't have happened. This inevitably means they're picked up on NSA cam, so Evil can don his spider suit and go chasing them through the city again. Fortunately, it only takes a couple of hours to get from the middle of the Peruvian jungle back to New York, so Madam Web gets back and steals an ambulance and drives after them. This is totally fine, acceptable behavior that in no way makes her morally culpable when the person who actually needed that ambulance presumably dies off screen. She arrives just in time to hit Evil with her ambulance in mid-air, and therefore they escape. Because she can now see the future very efficiently, there are pretty much no stakes at all in the final battle that ensues, as she takes the girls into an abandoned fireworks factory and has them light all of the fireworks, causing the factory to explode. It's fine though, because she knows absolutely everything that can possibly happen before it happens, so none of them die. Things do almost go momentarily wrong when Evil punches a firework away and accidentally takes out the helicopter that Madam Web predicted would arrive to rescue them. This means that she gets to have one last encounter with Evil, who once again accuses her of trying to beat him with her mind, and seems to think this is the sort of thing her mother would have done, even though at absolutely no point in the film did her mother ever attempt anything of the sort, and I've no idea why he, she, or the script would decide to make this the connection between villain and protagonist. Madam Web reveals that he's really just been confused about the future all along. It wasn't the 3 generic girls he saw murder him. Oh no, it was multiple versions of her or something, because she now has the power to be in many places at once. So she kills him, and we shall leave aside, at least until the main video, that her great power is seeing and changing the future, and yet she makes absolutely no attempt to save evil, even though she knows he's been operating on false pretenses all along. No, he's just evil. He has to die. That's just what has to happen. Alas, in the fight, she gets knocked off the exploding fireworks factory and back into the river, where for no particular reason she is blinded. To nobody's surprise whatsoever, the 3 generic girls use that CPR they learned from her in that one scene about 15 minutes ago, and they save her. We jump forward then to find that they are now a happy family all living together. Madam Web is blind and in a wheelchair, and so this means that she lives and speaks in autistic mode, because that's just what blind people in wheelchairs do in media. She's basically become Bran Stark. Remember Bran Stark? Remember? Oh no, I can't even joke about it. What an absolutely fucking catastrophic decision that was. The final line in the film is words to the effect of, "Whatever the future holds, you'll be ready for it, girls." Which is just funny because, you know, the entire point of the film I've just described is that Madam Web can see the future. So she has no business not knowing what the future holds. It's also hilarious because in no sane universe will any of these characters have a future, and in no just universe will any of these writers or indeed the director have a future in the industry. So, yeah, whatever the future holds, Madam Web, I'm pretty sure you're not gonna be in it. And that's it. That's kind of the end of the film. There's not even a post-credit scene in this one, which is a real shame, because I'm sure it would have been absolutely top-tier comedy. Now, that summary is necessarily brief, and so, just as necessarily, it leaves out a huge amount of additional nonsense that really just makes the whole thing better. Madam Web proves, if anything, that great art does not require authorial intent, since its divine comedy occurs completely by accident. Of course, it remains baffling that such a film exists, but we should probably be thankful that it does. If it does yet more damage to the superhero genre as a whole by fixing in people's minds that there are far more misses than hits these days, and so it's perfectly acceptable to skip the next, bigger, undoubtedly more depressingly terrible disaster in the mainline MCU, then we might one day thank it for hastening death. But for now, the very least that can be said for it is that it is very fucking funny, and it deserves all our thanks for that reason alone. Honestly, I'm sure by the end of this year, this will go down as one of the funniest, if not the funniest films of 2024.